I think Dan picked this passage just to mess with me a little bit because I'm dyslexic like my dad, and it's a lot of words and names. So please bear with me and have grace as I read the passage for today. But first I'm going to pray. So God, I thank you for your word. I thank you for the history and the lineage and the legacies that were. And I thank you that we get to read and learn and study and grow from it. And so I just pray that something would stand out to us this morning, and I pray that your word would just come alive as it's read. Amen. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, and Judah the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar, and Perez the father of Hezron and Hezron the father of Ram, and Ram the father of Amminadab, and Amminadab the father of Nahshon, and Nahshon the father of Salmon, and Salmon the father of Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz the father of Obed by Ruth, and Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of David the king. And David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah, and Solomon the father of Mom, how did I say this one? Rehoboam. I practiced so many times. And Rehoboam the father of Abijah, and Abijah the father of Asaph, and Asaph the father of Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat the father of Joram, and Joram the father of Uzziah, and Uzziah the father of Jotham, and Jotham the father of Ahaz, and Ahaz the father of Hezekiah, and Hezekiah the father of Manasseh, and Manasseh the father of Amos, and Amos the father of Josiah, and Josiah the father of Jeconiah and his brothers at the time of the deportation to Babylon. And after the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah was the father of Shealtiel, and Shealtiel was the father of Zerubbabel, and Zerubbabel the father of Abiad, and Abiad the father of Eliakim, and Eliakim the father of Azor, and Azor the father of Zadok, and Zadok the father of Achim, and Achim the father of Eliad, and Eliad the father of Eleazar, and Eleazar the father of Matan, and Matan the father of Jacob.
So when I was 14 years old, walked into a motorcycle shop with my dad at the south end of town on the strip. And I had been mowing lawns since I was 11 years old, and I had been saving all of my money. So we walk into this motorcycle shop, and I walk into one of the showrooms, and there, sitting in this showroom, is this gorgeous motorcycle. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was old, and I knew I really liked it. So I walked up to it, I swung my leg over it, propped it up, and it fit me perfectly. And I remember thinking to myself, this would be the perfect first motorcycle for me. I wonder if I could convince my dad to let me buy it. So I put the bike back on the stand, I got off, and I carried off into one of the different showrooms. And my dad followed in behind me. He had been talking to the owner before he came in. And so he walks into the showroom that I was leaving. And I go into the next one, and I'm looking at a different bike. And all of a sudden, I hear my dad holler, "Hey, Danny, come back here. Come and look at this." So I walk back into the showroom, and he says, "Do you know what this is?" And I said, "No, not really." And he says, "This is a 1973 Honda CB350F. Your grandfather had this exact motorcycle." He said, "This would be the perfect first motorcycle for you. I wonder if we could convince your mom to let you buy it." So needless to say, we convinced mom to let me buy the motorcycle. But now keep in mind, I'm only 14 years old. So for 2 years, my motorcycle sat in the garage. And every day without fail, I would go out into the garage and I would sit on my motorcycle and I would dream about the day that I could actually ride it. We'll come back to this a little bit later. Let's talk about something completely different. Today's Father's Day. And as I was asking the Lord what I should talk about today, I was taken back to when I was a teenager. And I began thinking about what it is that I struggled with as a young teen. And I remember as a teenager wrestling with two big questions. One was centered around the idea of connection to people, And it was questions like, where do I belong? Do we have the slides on the screen there? Where do I belong? Where is my place in the world? Where do I fit in? Who are my people? And the second was centered around the idea of purpose. And it was questions like, why am I here? What am I good at? What's my purpose? What do I want to be a part of? And in those early teen years, I was looking for a place where I could solve the answers to these questions of connection and purpose. What group of people do I belong to, and what is it that I'm supposed to do? And now that I'm a father, I feel this responsibility to help my children answer these questions for themselves. My job is to help them figure out who their people are and what their purpose is. Both me and my sister in our early teens, we had a similar experience. And the story I'm going to tell, it's probably going to sound silly and trivial to some of you, but I remember how much it impacted me as an early young teen, and what a difficult time it was for me to go through. So our elementary school went to grade 7, and in grade 7, you're roughly 12, 13 years old, somewhere in that range. And one of the things about our school, and it was so silly, one of the things that was so important to the kids in our school was the way you dressed. And the thing that was big at the time, they were called Guess jeans. And Guess jeans had a little green triangle on the back pocket. And kids in school would actually look to see, they'd walk around and they'd look at each other's back ends. And they'd go, do you have the green triangle? Do you have the green triangle? And me and my sister, we didn't have the green triangle on our blue jeans. In fact, we didn't even have brand new blue jeans. My mother clothed us out of Togs and Toys up in Kimberley. And so, in terms of acceptable social norms for 12-year-olds, the Poiriers were a 0 out of 10. We didn't wear Guess jeans. We didn't even wear new jeans. I didn't play hockey. Like living in Cranbrook, hockey is like a religion. So I didn't play hockey, and we went to church. And I remember in those years, it started in grade 6 and it carried through and it went all the way through grade 7, through that last year in elementary school. I really had this sense of I don't belong anywhere because I didn't fit in. I was a 0 out of 10. And the only friend I had was Sean Simpson, and we would spend all of lunch hour together, and we would find places around the schoolyard where nobody else was, and we just avoided people because we couldn't handle the incessant teasing. And again, it sounds silly and trivial, but I remember at that point in my life, I would go home and I would be in tears, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me why the clothes that I wore made me have a sense of self-worth. My clothes, the jeans that I wear, is that what actually makes me fit in? And do I have to change who I am in order to find a place as a young teenager to fit in? I know it's a silly example, but it's something that I know young teens today even struggle with this. Where do I fit in, and what's my purpose? And I see a lot of young people are left to deal with these questions on their own. A lot of kids today, they don't have a father figure in their life. They don't have parents that guide them through these questions, mentors and guides. And as a result, they're left trying to find a sense of belonging and purpose on their own, and they actually compromise who they know they actually are in order to just find somewhere to belong. There's a character in the Bible that struggled with this very same thing, and his name was Moses. Moses was born a slave in Egypt. He was born of an Israelite woman, and at the time, the Egyptians were hunting down and they were killing any Israelite male children because they were trying to control the Israelite population. And so his mother put him in a basket and she put him in the Nile River. And Moses was found by the daughter of Pharaoh. She took him out of the Nile River and she had pity on him and she adopted him into her household. And so Moses was raised in the house of the most powerful man at the time, the most powerful man on earth. Then, when Moses was an adult, he was out wandering around, and he notices an Egyptian, and he's beating an Israelite slave. And Moses has pity on the Israelite slave, and he kills the Egyptian. And overnight, Moses is turned into a national fugitive, and he goes on the run. So Moses flees from Egypt, and he goes out into the desert, and he goes to a place called Midian. And in Midian, he finds a group of people that take him in. They have pity on him, and they take this national fugitive in. And the way he helps them is he starts looking after their sheep. So here's Moses, raised in the king's house, in the house of the most powerful man on earth. He's now a fugitive, living in the desert, looking after sheep. If there's anybody who has the right to feel like they don't know where they belong, they don't know who their people are, it's Moses. I can imagine Moses asking the question, what is the point to all this? Where do I fit in? Who are my people? What's my purpose? I was a prince of the most powerful nation in the world, and now I'm a displaced fugitive, hiding for my life in the desert. What's the point? In January, I was meeting with Frank, and I was dealing with some stuff at the time, and Frank asked me a question that struck me. He said, Dan, what do you do for fun? What do you do for yourself? And I said, well, I don't really do anything fun or for myself. I said, I wake up, I go to work, I work really long hours, I'm out on the road, I come home, I go to bed, and I do the same thing over and over again. Rinse, lather, repeat, rinse, lather, repeat, rinse, lather, repeat. And he said something to me. He said, Dan, you need a hobby. And I misheard him because I thought he said, Dan, you need a Harley. So this is a 2003 Harley-Davidson Fat Boy. This is the motorcycle that was on the poster on my bedroom wall as a teenage boy. Willie and Jude rode Fat Boys. Jude's was a 1990 original, silver, had yellow striping, top of the engine right there. And Willie's was a custom wine burgundy. They were gorgeous, and I absolutely loved them. I want to show you another thing. These are my chaps. Who knows what chaps are? So chaps, they're a set of pants that go over your regular pants, and they zip up. And they're made out of leather. Does anybody know why bikers wear leather? Because if you go sliding down the highway, you'd rather lose your hide than cowhide than your hide. So these chaps, I've had these for a long time. I've had these chaps for 33 years. My dad had these chaps made for me when I was 9 years old. He also had a set made for my sister. And every 2 years, my chaps would go to my sister, and my sister's chaps would go into the leather shop, and they would add another strip of leather to the back, and they would add another strip of the leather to the bottom in order to make them longer and wider. So if you actually look closely at my chaps, I've got about 3 strips of leather added in, and I've got a few strips of leather added to the bottom in order to make them longer and wider. They look ridiculous, but I've had them for so long that I can't ever not wear them. We're going to come back to all that stuff in a minute. Back to Moses. So Moses is a fugitive, hiding in the desert looking after sheep. The Bible doesn't say this, but if I imagine Moses' situation and I put myself in his shoes, I would be asking, why am I here? Why am I in this situation? What is the point of all this? Where do I belong? Does any of this matter? I had it all, and now I have nothing. Moses finds himself looking after this flock of sheep in the desert, and he found himself at the base of a mountain called Horeb. And one day, Moses looks up onto the mountain, and he sees something, and it's something burning. And so he goes up the mountain, and when he gets there, he sees that it's a bush. And this bush is on fire, but the bush isn't actually burning. And then the bush starts to talk to him. The bush says, Moses, Moses. And we pick it up in Exodus 3, verse 6. Moses, I am the God of your father. Moses, you were raised in the house of the Egyptian king. You were raised in the house of the most powerful man in the known world. You thought you were raised in that house, and you thought that's where you belonged. But you were wrong. That is not your house. I am the God of your actual father. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Moses, you thought you were from the lineage of great kings of Egypt, but you were wrong. Moses, you were from the lineage of someone that is stronger than any king on earth. You are from a lineage that comes from above. You thought you were from a legacy of the great pharaohs, but you were wrong. You are from the lineage, from the legacy that comes from eternity. You thought you knew where you belonged. You thought you knew what your purpose was, but you're wrong. Your legacy comes from eternity. Your lineage is beyond anything you could ever imagine. You've been living in the wrong lineage. You've been living in the wrong legacy. And now I'm calling you to the right one. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. When you stand in the face of God and he imparts who you actually are meant to be, it is truly humbling. This has been at the forefront of my mind for the past year. I started thinking about this about a year ago. My wife can tell you. The first question I've had for myself as a father is, what lineage am I living from? And what lineage am I inspiring my children to live from and carry forward? And the second question I have for myself as a father is, what legacy am I living from? And what legacy am I inspiring my children to live from and carry forward? The Bible helps a person answer these questions by gluing two parts together. The Bible is a collection of, number one, what happened. That's legacy. That's the stories. The second part is who actually did it. That's the lineage. Legacy is a story. Lineage is who did it. And understanding the link between lineage, the lineage that you're living from, and the legacy of that story, and and understanding the connection between the legacy and the lineage, the people and the story, it can act as a powerful inspiration and a guide for what lineage and legacy you want to live in and pass into the future. Those two questions about lineage and legacy then create two desires inside of me personally as a father. Number one, I want to inspire my children to live a life of lineage and legacy that has meaning and purpose. As I said earlier, as a father, I'm asking myself, what lineage and legacy am I imparting to my kids, into my children? Does it have meaning and purpose? Am I guiding them and inspiring them to lineage and legacy that actually means something? Or am I leaving it for them to find out on their own and just discover it by accident? As a father, helping my children define what lineage and legacy they will live from and carry forward will help them answer the questions of, where do I belong and what's my purpose? And my second desire as a father is very selfish. One day when I'm old, I want my children to say that my legacy made a difference in their lives. I want my children to say that my legacy made a difference in other people's lives. And I want my children to say that they are proud to be in my lineage. That's my heart's cry as a father. How are my children going to remember me? I have one more thing that I want to show you. This is my leather jacket. And on the back of my leather jacket is a patch. I've got a picture of it up on stage. This patch tells people that I'm a member of the Christian Motorcyclists Association. And we call it CMA for short. CMA is unique in the motorcycling world. This year, CMA is celebrating its 50th anniversary. CMA has a lineage and a legacy that it can really be proud of. Started in 1975 by a Southern Baptist preacher from Arkansas by the name of Herb Shreve, CMA is not a motorcycle club. CMA is one of the world's largest evangelistic organizations dedicated to telling people about Jesus Christ. CMA's slogan is changing the world one heart at a time. CMA has a lineage and a legacy that I am proud to be a part of. What lineage and legacy are you living from? What lineage and legacy are you a part of? In August, I'm going to attend a motorcycle rally called the Boogie Bash. Now, the Boogie Bash it's not a Christian event by no stretch of the imagination. In its early history, the Boogie Bash actually has connections to a well-known biker gang. And in August, I'm going to attend the Boogie Bash with about 20 other CMAers. And our purpose of being there is to serve. What we're going to do, we're going to run their gate. We are going to do traffic. We're going to clean their bathrooms. We're going to run their goodie store. And we're just going to serve. And we serve in order to earn the right to speak. And that, as I said, is a lineage and legacy that I am proud to be a part of. As I said, we estimate that this year there's going to be 20 CMAers at the Boogie Bash. But that's not how the history of CMA at the Boogie Bash started. It didn't start with 20. It started with 2. In the early 90s, there were two buddies, and they were Christians, and they were both CMAers, and they said, you know what, we got to start getting involved with the bikers around us. And so they started becoming friends with them. They started riding with them. They started going to their events. They went to swap meets, bike nights, toy runs, rallies like the Boogie Bash. And there are a lot of Christians that actually ride motorcycles. But what a lot of guys will do is they put on their leathers and they ride their motorcycles as a way of becoming one of the crowd. But when you put a patch on your back that says you're a Christian, it's something entirely different. You're not one of the crowd, you're one in the crowd. I was in Sturgis in 2005, and I was at a gas station, and I had my colors on, and all of a sudden from behind me I hear this, hey, you. And I turn around, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I'm not a very big guy. When I turn around, there's a guy standing in front of me. He's a whole head taller than me, and he's a patched member of a motorcycle club. And I'm shaking. I'm like, what is this guy going to do? What is he going to say? And he says, that patch on your back. He says, I just want to let you know I have a lot of respect for that patch. Oh. Thank you, Jesus. But that's not always the case. Sometimes when you put the word Christian on your back, you don't always get a warm welcoming. So for two guys to put the CMA patch on their back and go to a rally with connections to a major motorcycle gang, that took guts. And they went to that rally for years, just the two of them, without any other CMAers coming with them. As a father, I started feeling last year that I needed to get active in CMA. And not by myself, but they actually needed to include my wife and my kids. We needed to do it as a family. Because I felt the Lord tell me that I need to get my kids outside the walls of the church and be involved in an organization that is purposeful in telling people about Jesus. I want my children to see their parents involved in something that has a lineage and legacy rooted in evangelism. As I said, what lineage and legacy are you living for? What lineage and legacy are you a part of? What lineage and legacy are you passing on to your children? Some people are living in a lineage that has no legacy. Lineage without legacy, it's just a list of names. There's no significance or meaning behind the names. There's no story. Moses was a son of Egypt. He was living in a lineage. It was the most powerful nation on earth, but it had no eternal significance. He thought he knew who he was. He thought he knew what his lineage and legacy was. He thought he knew where he belonged. He thought he knew what his purpose was. But he was actually wrong. His actual lineage and legacy was something rooted in eternity. Something with significance. In Exodus 3, verse 6, going back to that verse, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham. And then Eve read Matthew chapter 1 to us. Abraham was the father of Isaac. And Isaac was the father of Jacob. And Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers. And Judah the father of Perez. At first glance, it's just a list of names. But when you understand the legacy behind the names, now all of a sudden, you understand its importance. I'm Dan, the son of Dan. My son is Samuel, the son of Dan, who was the son of Dan. They're just names. They don't mean anything if you don't understand the legacy, the story behind the names. I'm a member of CMA because I want to be a part of changing the world one heart at a time. CMA has story after story after story of changed lives as a result of what people have done within CMA as members of CMA. There's stories of lives changed because of CMAers going to the Boogie Bash. And one story in particular stands out to me as my favorite. There was a biker that used to go to the Boogie Bash back in the early 90s. I'm not going to tell you his real name. I'm going to call him John. And when you imagine a biker, John fit the mold to a T. Leather, scruffy beard, swore like a sailor, riding his Harley, cigarette hanging out the side of his mouth. He was a biker's biker. John was also a drug dealer. Amongst all the bikers, everybody knew. That's where you got it from. If you wanted something, go see John. A couple of years ago, my dad got a call. And it was John. And John said, "Dan, just wanted to let you know, I got saved. I got born again. I'm a follower of Jesus. I have a new lineage. I have a new legacy. And Dan, the reason why I'm calling is I just want to thank you for being brave enough. I want to thank you and Rolly for being brave enough to come and hang out with us, to be brave enough to put on the CMA patch and not just be one of the crowd, not just be one of the crowd, but to be one in the crowd." That is the lineage and legacy that my father has inspired me to be a part of because of the example that he lived. That is a lineage and a legacy that I hope to pass on to my children. And I'm proud of my dad. He made a difference in my life, and he made a difference in the lives of others. As we read in Matthew 1, from Abraham to Jacob, at first glance, it's just a list of names. But when you understand the legacy behind the names, you understand its importance. Carrying from the end of verse 15 and going into 16. Matan, the father of Jacob, and Jacob, the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who is called Christ. The important part of this genealogy isn't that Jesus was in the lineage of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Judah, King David, King Solomon. The importance of this genealogy is that they were in his lineage. The importance of my dad's legacy isn't that he was in CMA. It isn't that he rode motorcycles. The importance of his legacy is that John is now in the lineage and legacy of Jesus Christ. The importance of my dad's lineage and legacy is that in 1988, at a biker rally in the dirt beside the outhouse, his son made a decision to follow Jesus Christ. First Peter 1:23 tells me, "You have been born again, not of perishable seed, but of imperishable, through the living and abiding Word of God. I have been born again into an imperishable lineage and legacy. What lineage and legacy are you living in? What lineage and legacy are you inspiring into your children? Is it perishable or imperishable? I'm going to ask everybody to close their eyes.